Hey everyone, it's Fefner, here for a quick explanation of this episode. It's episode 1 of our Monster Hearts campaign, which isn't really episode 1 of it. So, you see, Monster Hearts was the second campaign we ran. We ran Ryutama first, but we didn't actually record any of that. But hey, if you want to check out the character journals, that's on lp.zone. You can find a Ryutama thread by Jenner. And, yeah, afterwards, though, we did Monster Hearts. And we didn't start recording immediately. The plan was to record from the beginning, but then we forgot. And then a few episodes in, we realized we should. And recording didn't go well at first. We initially tried, like, Discord recording programs, but none of them worked out well at all, and in fact produced no usable audio whatsoever. So, in the end, we ended up settling on the method we use nowadays, which is we just stream it to Twitch. I mean, it's easier. Theoretically, we can have a live audience, and we don't have to trust in recorders that could very easily fail. Now you might ask, why don't we all just use Audacity? And the answer is, I left the oven on. Alright, I'm back. Where were we? Oh yes, so, consequently, we don't have the first sessions of Monster Hearts. So, this is episode 1, but it's going to have very little, actual play content, and for that I apologize. Instead, you're mostly going to get some, in-character recap from me, who wasn't the GM, and was just a player character. But thankfully Jenner at least wrote some summaries, so, I can remember what happened in the early sessions years later. But yeah, the only actual play audio you're going to hear is our first session 0 that we had for session 6? I think this is session 6. Yeah, again, I know 5 sessions and we didn't record, I'm sorry. Doing my best, dang it. But, yeah, we don't do session zeros anymore, but we did once, and so you'll at least hear the first one we ever did. The rest of that afterwards is just a summary. If you want a text-based summary that's not in character, you could always go to lp.zone and find the Monster Hearts thread that's by Jenner. It's got the same title as this series of videos, Awful Teens in an Awful State. But yeah, other than that, a whole lot of content warnings. It's Monster Hearts, so it's a game about teens being bad. So, in general, there's a lot to take in, and on top of that, Jenner also had a fairly serious storyline for this, including a whole lot of abuse. The content warning, I'll mostly be using the content warnings Jenner provided for each episode, because it's easier to just read them off instead of actually, writing them down myself or anything. It takes like 3 seconds of effort, but why would I do that when somebody already graciously warned the audience of what's in each episode? So, I'm just going back over that. So, domestic abuse, intimate partner abuse, explosions, domestic abuse, violence, vomiting, food poisoning. That one's comparatively not as bad. And episode 5 doesn't have any sort of content warnings. Somehow I don't feel like that's right, I feel as though they were probably forgotten here, but just assume that the ones that appeared before probably appear here as well. I think I've covered the bases. You're good, right? Session 0 time, let's go.
Hi, I'm streaming, and if you're watching this, don't watch it. Don't do it. Don't watch it. Wait for me to post up the audio on the LP Zone forums, and don't watch the stream because I'm going to be pulling up windows and posting pictures. and doing stupid shit that you don't need to see. Unless you want to see it, and if you do, fuck you, because it's not happening.
Wow, Jenner, that's real rude to our potential viewers.
Hi, welcome to our stream. Fuck you.
Go
Get
fuck
fucked,
yourself.
suck my butt, etc. This is
Hello.
the love.
There'll be no butt sucking in this stream. I mean, maybe. We don't know where this game's gonna go
Hi,
yet.
Fefner. Welcome to this.
Speaking of butt sucking, hello. No, stop it.
What an aggressively confrontational opening to a stream. It might be the most hostile environment I've ever seen in a stream.
You can fucking
They've
be
probably
outside.
been worse.
Oh shit! You can see the spoilers. Don't do that. Okay, I fixed it. Don't look.
Uh-oh, there are spoilers.
I added new students to the school because Vinny's fucking dead.
We just need one student then.
No, we need multiple students to bully people.
And or have sex with.
Yes, that too. We need at least 3 mortals because I mean Spencer's got to work now.
No!
Can't we have sex without horrible things happening?
No.
Hey,
Or at
hey,
least different horrible things happening?
Heather, and Holly managed to bone people without horrible things happening to them. Well,
They
Yeah.
both the same person.
Yeah, we did bone each other. Well, we don't know what happened. Shut up.
And when I had sex, I killed a person.
Vinny's. We're gonna learn about Vinny's fate today.
Or does he
Okay.
come back as a zombie?
Listen, my big mood for this session is fuck me up real bad.
I'm
Oh, that's right. You are beholden to the Fieri.
Yes.
Yeah, so anyone, if you have suggestions how to really just screw me over, just all over the place, just please chime in.
I like Jeff a lot, so I have a hard time being mean to him. So I will need help being mean to Jeff.
As long as it doesn't involve me, because I have someone else's life to take care of. When it's just
Oh,
me
you'll
on
be
my own,
involved.
it's
He's gonna come
fine.
ask me about that shit, remember?
Yeah, you have to remember. She was like, we could ask Holly for help because why wouldn't we ask Holly for help? I don't know how they're gonna fix it. Okay, so how am I sounding, Breadmaster?
When I checked, it was okay.
Okay, it's better.
I can check it again.
Okay, check real quick, one more time. I'm gonna say some words. They are very.
I'm gonna say some words for comparison.
Yes. If someone else say some words.
I too shall
Yeah.
add some words.
Thank you. Okay. Now we'll wait for Breadmaster to come back and let me know if everything is okay. That's your cue, Breadmaster.
There's a delay, Jenner.
Yeah, there's about a 15-second delay.
Okay. So we good? I'm actually recording my own audio.
I am super quiet on the stream, though.
Good. No, nothing you say is important anyway. No.
Oh.
Just pull the volume up in Discord a little bit.
Yeah, hold on. Let me. Oh no, you guys are already maxed. The desktop audio is already maxed. Oh yeah.
No, the actual Discord audio for that person.
Yeah, hold
Right
on.
click on
Oh
Breadmaster's
gosh,
icon.
you're already all the way. If you look on the stream, you can see you're already maximum volume.
You know it defaults to 100, so it's at 200 now.
Yeah, you're already at 200.
Oh, jeez.
Why did you do that?
Let me make sure.
Breadmaster, stop
Fafner's not
whispering
at
into your
200
mic.
There, Fafner's not
What?
at 200.
Just eat the mic.
Yeah.
Just get up in there.
Okay.
There we go. Wow. Okay. There we go. All right. Oof. Don't look at my Discord channel. They're secret. All right. So
I just see a lot of dogs.
all the dogs.
All the time.
See all these pogs that Loika sent me that I can't use because they're good boys.
We're still in the woods, according to this map.
Well, I'm moving Yodlords later. Oh yeah, this is a picture of Akio that I'm not using for anything. Don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. Okay, there it is. Thank you. Need that. Stop watching the stream because I don't want you to spoil. I don't want to spoil anything. Okay. Here we go.
Your music choices.
Shut up.
Look at the stream.
You know, if you don't want people seeing all your secret stuff, you'd have someone else stream for you.
I
Right.
did suggest that.
I want to be a big girl. I want want to do it. I want to do it on my own. I want to put on my big girl britches and everything.
The big girl thing to do would be to tell someone else to do it for you.
It's too late now.
Yeah, it's called delegating, and it's what people do when they're rich.
Shit, I'm not rich.
Or organized.
Or any of those things. It's true.
You have a wealth of emotion.
Gosh. That's true. It's very true. You can actually see things that are in the GM layer, by the way, so I can't surprise you guys if you watch the stream, so quit it.
We're not watching it. Why would we watch it?
Alright, it's 8:30. It's time to start.
I roll dark, and then I put the stream on.
Streams didn't exist in 2005, guys. Come on. Were esports a thing in 2005?
They might have been. Okay.
Was
so,
Dota a thing in 2005?
when we
No.
last left off,
It absolutely was not.
go to the cul-de-sac, you nerds.
When did Warcraft 3 come out?
Oh no, two loose furies.
I don't know. Oh dear.
Oh god, two me's. What's happening?
I don't know what's going on. It's not my fault. Oh, good.
It's
Everybody
the
started.
return of the Phantom Jeffs we had in the
Yep.
Atomic campaign.
Get out of here.
Phantom Denebs.
Yeah, it's Phantom Deneb. Because Deneb is just everywhere.
That was Jack and Lucifury briefly falling back in time during their inevitable final battle.
It is an Iron Chef challenge battle, obviously.
That's
Through
right,
time.
Because Spencer can't leave the school unless he possesses something.
Yeah.
We'll get to you in a minute.
Ohio, 2005. It was in Maple Grove Township where the lives of several people changed for the better. I live for the eye rolls I get whenever I say that, but it's true. Alright, perhaps I should make the story a little more believable. Things got a lot worse before they got better. So much worse. In fact, this is a story about most of those worst parts. Can't expect much else from Ohio, I guess. But it's an important story, I think. You won't hear about it in the history books. It's just too shrouded in mystery. But you also won't hear it in any occult stories, about the things that really go on just beyond our mortal senses. It's too mundane against those. But sometimes those little stories matter a lot more than you'd think. So, where to start? Well, I guess it was pretty close to the start of the school year. So, the real story didn't begin alongside the supernatural. Well, that ain't the best way to phrase it. There'd been a ghost living at that school for years. Low-High wasn't a normal place. But when everything started, it started with a run-of-the-mill prank. Someone had dyed the pool purple overnight. Principal was furious. So much so they wrangled together a whole $75 to give to anyone who felt like snitching. Of course, even $75 ain't enough to get a bunch of high school kids to start running their mouths. Most of them didn't even care. Most of them. There's this kid, Jack Taylor. Quiet guy, decent life, dumb enough to make a deal with a devil. Not the devil, mind you. Just a curious demon that went by the name Lucifury. If you're wondering from the name, he does look a lot like Guy Fieri. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Jack decided he wanted to be the snitch to get the stitch, but he didn't actually know who was responsible. His wild accusations would have dug a pretty deep grave for him. Only his friend Arx thought of a slightly more believable lie. he decided to pin the blame on the local powerhouse, Heather Fitz. Heather wasn't exactly the type to mess with. A few years ago, she'd beaten up every person in school just to make sure her bases were covered. She was suspended for quite a while after that, but it certainly stopped any dull short jokes at Low High. Yeah, even the ones not about her. Heather was pretty passive after that, but most students still knew not to mess with her. Faculty wasn't too keen on yelling at her either. So you might be wondering, how exactly did that help Jack's case? Well, it didn't. In fact, Heather was pretty sure Jack was the one to sell her out. But he was safe for now. Not like Heather was gonna knife any teacher that tried to put her in detention. Intimidate him, sure. But she ended up going along with the punishment, even when she insisted her innocence. They had her clean the pool the next day. So that's where Heather would end up, but I should mention that Ark made a very costly mistake that same day. So remember that ghost I mentioned? His name's Spencer. Spencer Douglas. He lived on the roof. Or existed there, being a ghost and all. Spencer was a pretty passive ghoul as well. Till that day that Ark made his way to the roof. Then, made out with its residents. That would be the inciting incident for the story. More or less. Oh, before we get to the real start of this whole mess, I'm guessing you want to know who died in the pool in the first place, right? Well, that'd be Holly Conifer, the school's witch. Yeah, I know, I downplayed the supernatural stuff, but being a witch didn't exactly impact that particular day. After all, you can't blame Holly's penchant for mischief on witchcraft. Plenty of witches have never died at a pool in their life. Anyway, Holly died at the pool, spent the day destroying any evidence of her prank, and got away scot-free. Heck, a few years ago, I couldn't even tell you this part of the story. That one's crafty for sure. Alright, so that's the stage set, right? School's reeling from a prank, which was fairly normal. But there was also a ghost that was now suddenly filled with strange emotions he didn't quite understand, which mostly translated to blind vengeance. That was unusual. So the next day, Heather had to get up bright and early to start cleaning. She had help from a dorky kid named Archie, but there was another person. Valerie Parker. Shy girl, normally, but she wanted to help out. And that was the day that Heather, who normally didn't pay any mind to people around her, noticed some bruises on Valerie. And for some reason, she noticed quite a bit more. By which I mean some devilish spirit granted her a vision of Valerie's stepfather hitting her while in a drunken stupor. Now you might guess that Heather's not great with dealing with complex and fragile situations like this, and you'd be right. Heather couldn't comfort a kid who spilled their ice cream. Funnily enough, though, ice cream would be her solution. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. That would come later in the day. First, let's talk about the chemistry lab explosion. Yeah, that's where the story really begins. Now, according to the school's story, a negligent teacher left the gas pump on, and if it weren't for the school's new darling student, Jack Taylor, everyone in that room would have died. But Jack ran in on a bathroom break or whatever, and pulled some of the students out of the room. But that's just how the staff rationalized it. True, there was a gas leak, but that wasn't due to negligence. It was actually caused by a very angry ghost. Yeah, Spencer decided to kill a whole lot of students in his blind rage. It's also true that Jack ran in and managed to pull a few kids out of the blast. But he had inside information. Luciferi wanted a few more favors from Jack, so he warned Jack ahead of time. And just like that, Jack was a local... I guess we'll go with hero. He didn't exactly have the confidence to pull off celebrity, savior, or no. But he managed to get on everyone's good side, students and teachers alike, so that's impressive enough in its own right. So, what happened in the aftermath? Let's see. Well, I think Ark had tried to confide in Spencer or console him or something of that nature. but Spencer was still violent and unruly, so that conversation didn't go well. But Spencer did wind up pushing Ark back to Jack, a much more emotionally and possibly sexually fragile Ark. Now, you might think that situation's pretty bad, but let me make it worse and remind you that Lucifury was always close to Jack, which is uncomfortable within the subject of intimacy, but becomes dangerous when you know that encounters like this only end up fueling Lucifury's power. And Lucifury had plans for Jack just afterwards. I suppose I should mention that Spencer was finally done with his blood rage. Mostly. He went back to the roof only to find a punk-ass kid named Christine Chang drinking her day away. Now, personalities like this have a chance of clashing. There is such a thing as too much angst, but not here. The two headed off, don't you worry. And speaking of hitting it off, Val had something to ask of Heather once they were done with ice cream. She wanted Heather to beat up her stepdad, and Heather, ever clueless of the power structure involved in ages and genders, agreed. Of course, she only got around to a little bit of that, which was probably better in the long run. Turns out Lucifury sent Jack to intervene. Not only did Jack end up saving Valerie's stepdad, but he didn't die in the process. An impressive feat, to be sure. Now, Val's stepdad didn't go unscathed, so that situation could improve until the inevitable point where it'd get worse. I ain't spoiling anything, right? But don't worry, there was some silver lining. I should mention that most of the problem students I've been talking about thus far lived in the same cul-de-sac. Not Spencer, of course, he was mostly tied to the school. Anyway, the silver lining, right. That Holly gal was living close by, so Val got to spend the night with her instead of being in her own dysfunctional home. 'Cause let me tell ya, Father Dearest spending time in the hospital wasn't gonna help the situation. So, what then? What was next for the less than heroic Jack? Well, if you were to guess he went on to rob a combination Pizza Hut Taco Bell for fire sauce, I would say you were throwing the bet. But no, that's exactly what he did. So the next day, Jack and Ark poisoned the school lunch at the request of Jack's dark patron Lucifury. If you thought all occult conspiracies were sensical, I'm just gonna tell you now that you're wrong. Thankfully, Lucifury's next task was a little more normal. He just wanted Jack to go break up a couple of kids. Let's see, Tommy and Kevin? I think those are the guys. Anyway, the plan was to get Spencer's help to trick the couple into thinking Ark had slept with the other one. That plan didn't end so well for Ark, who got his head handed to him. But the beatdown took place on the roof, so Jack had backup in Chris. And I should mention that there's some hard-to-find footage of the fights. Not terribly interesting, except if you look closely, you can see Chris sporting some mean claws. So, big day, huh? Well, that day's events wouldn't turn the heads of types like me. Strange, but not exactly notable when there's 1,000 other mysteries to solve. But thing is, Chris was planning a big old party out in the woods. She was old enough to cross the border into Canada and nab some beer. Popular gal she was. Once everyone was over their sauce-induced puking fits that, rest assured, you don't need to hear the details of, they could all turn their attention to some highly illegal fun. And seeing how he was friends with Chris, even Spencer got to join in. Turns out he was able to possess Chris's motorcycle and ride to the forest with her. Meanwhile, Jack went along with Ark, and both Heather and Holly tagged along with Valerie. Strange thing was, though, the man riding in the front seat next to Val's mom wasn't Val's stepdad, and oddly enough, that wasn't a good thing. Alright, night of the party. Things went south just about as soon as they could. Heather wandered off, given the non-socialite she was, and wouldn't you know it, she ran straight into a mandrake. wasn't too intimidated, but thankfully Holly came running since a witch like her was far better equipped for something like a mandrake, and even without the witchcraft, a bit less foolhardy at that. She was also better equipped for finding an entire garden made for some nefarious purpose or another. But while they were gone, Val was spirited away by a vampire. So old Team H searched the darkness for her and stumbled across a pack of wolves who had surrounded Val's kidnapper. Holly did her best to befriend the enemy of her enemy, but Heather just punched a path to her new friend. Meanwhile, with the full moon approaching, Chris tried to sneak off into the night, but of course Spencer followed close behind. And once the moonlight hit her, she transformed into a werewolf. Sorry, should I not have told you about the claw thing earlier? Oh, you're wondering why Chris would schedule a party on the night of a full moon. Fair question. And my only answer is, do y'all expect a drunkard teen to know what the moon's gonna be on any given day? I've never met a werewolf that's learned moon phases until their 22nd birthday, at the earliest. But anyway, Wolf Chris rushed into the fray and Spencer tried to hold her back. It turned out a little more intimate than one might expect. I don't want to go into detail, but from what I understand of the situation, it would have involved a lot more blood play if Spencer weren't a ghost, but let's not dwell on that. Heather and Holly managed to save Val. That's all you need to know. With that over and done with, everyone could head back to the party. Everyone except the wolf and ghost, anyway. But the night of mischief didn't end there. Holly decided to drug everyone at the party, and when a witch drugs someone, things typically go poorly. Or you have a lovely day, but I ain't exactly at liberty to talk about that. Jack and Ark had snuck off, but where was Lucifieri? Right in the middle of the party, looking at all the potential victims he had. His timing couldn't be better because Holly's concoction allowed everyone to see him. It was a good time for him, but not anyone else involved. Heather tried to do her usual thing, but old Lucifieri had a trick up his sleeve. He revealed that Holly was the one to dye the pool, and before Heather could turn her into paste, he made a deal with the witch to make everyone forget what they'd seen and heard of him. So Lucifieri got a night of terror, buried the evidence, and got himself a new puppet in the process. And if you want my opinion, he made a research a pain in the ass as well. My sources made me pay a fortune for that info. Sorry, still bitter. Anyway, everyone forgot what happened, so everyone left with a strong feeling that the party had been ruined, but nobody quite knew how. Except Holly, of course. She was a wreck. Heather and Val dragged her back home, and Holly's dads helped bandage the lot of them. Physically, of course. Emotionally, Holly was a lot of self-care away from getting over the night. Holly told her dads about the garden, and it turns out the two were pretty proactive. But while they were off to burn some ominous shrubs or whatever was down there, Holly was left alone with the hottest single in the area. Heat hot like the flames of hell. She could see Lucifieri is what I was getting at. Heather and Val had snuck off by then. Val's dad was already on his way out of the hospital, so the two snuck to Heather's house for an impromptu sleepover. One which, if I've lined my dates up correctly, probably ended with Val admitting she was a lesbian. Elsewhere, Jack spent the night with Ark and Spencer spent the night with Chris. Spent the night with her. That didn't go super well, though. Next day, Spencer actually tried to be supportive. Chris, though, didn't see their relationship being any more than sex, so that was awkward. And on the other side of town, Jack had a nice time joining Ark at the church. A nice Lucifieri-less time. And like all good things, that came to an end when Ark brought Jack back home, where Jack's parents tried their best to dote. But Jack, being a teen, tried to hide his relationship despite the friendly support. If that sounds bad, remember Ark was there. 3 guesses as to what happened to that relationship. Whew, what time is it? I need a break. There's a lot of story left to go, and keep in mind that's what we knew about these events before there were prying eyes. I can pepper in a few more details than the rest of it, so let's leave things there for now, eh? Bit of patience is good for you, you know. Disagree? Then let's say it'll do a gal's voice good to just stop for a bit. Not gonna argue with that one? Good. And good night at that. The main theme is Moral Centralia by Harvey Danger. The only other song used in this episode was Fork in the Wall from No More Heroes. And just as a quick note, I did really want to use Reprehensible by They Might Be Giants as the main theme for like half the Monster Hearts series before switching to Moral Centralia, but I checked and like the song's not out and out banned, but YouTube's like, yeah, you'll be blocked in like basically every country if you use this song, so can't use it. Also worth noting, Session 0. The initial reason I wanted it in this episode was I figured, even if it's not like the actual play part of the actual play episode, I figured it would be good to have a sample of what you'll actually be getting into when you listen to these episodes rather than just all me all the time. And then I edited that session, and then I included the Session 0 in this episode and not the next one, because I thought it would just be a lot funnier to just hear that before you get all the context. I still stand by what I said before, but like, man, we just real casually talk about shit that's gonna happen. But yeah, that's just about it for credits. Go follow twitch.tv/Batalisk. We stream just about every Wednesday at about 9 Eastern. We're not playing Monster Hearts anymore, but hey, guess what? We're still good.